In this session, focus will be on two non-justiciable parts of Indian Constitution. Part 4, dealing with directive principles of state policy, and Part 4a, fundamental duties for the citizens of India. Let us start with directive principles of state policy. A novel feature of the Indian Constitution is that it contains a chapter in the form of directive principles of state policy. These principles are in the nature of directives to the government to implement them for establishing social and economic democracy in the country. This Part 4 embodies very important principles, most of which could help making India a welfare state. Though non-justiciable, these principles have been declared as fundamental in the governance of the country. Directive principles of state policy are in the form of instructions or guidelines to both the central and state governments. The idea of directive principles of state policy was being derived from the Constitution of Irish Republic. They were incorporated in our Constitution in order to provide social and economic justice to the people of India and to prevent concentration of wealth in the hands of few people. They are, in fact, the directives to the government to incorporate them in the decisions and public policies to be formulated by the government. Let us now attempt a classification of these directive principles of state policy. Directive principles of state policy can be grouped together into four categories. These are the economic and social principles, the Gandhian principles, principles and policies related to international peace and security, and obviously there are certain miscellaneous principles. Let us now start with economic and social principles. It has been declared that the state shall endeavor to achieve social and economic welfare of the people by providing adequate means of livelihood to both men and women. Secondly, by reorganizing economic system in a way to avoid concentration of wealth in the hands of few. Securing equal pay for equal work for both men and women. It has also been stated that state must strive to secure suitable employment and healthy working conditions for men, women and children. State shall guard the children against exploitation and moral degradation. State will attempt to make effective provisions for securing the right to work, education and public assistance in case of unemployment, old age, sickness and disablement. State shall make provisions for securing just and human conditions of work and for maternity relief. State will take steps to secure the participation of workers in the management of undertakings, etc. State shall promote education and economic interests of the working sections of the population, especially those belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. State shall secure for all the workers reasonable leisure and cultural opportunities and will make efforts to raise standard of living and public health. State shall try to provide early childhood care and education to all children until they complete the age of 6 years. There are certain Gandhian principles, that is, the principles which were being advocated by Mahatma Gandhi. These principles are as follows: to organize village panchayats, to promote cottage industries in rural areas, to prohibit intoxicating drinks and drugs except for medical purposes, to preserve and improve the breeds of cattle, prohibit slaughter of cows and the like. As I have already stated that there are some directive principles of state policy which are actually related to international peace and security. It has been stated that India should render active cooperation for world peace and security, and for that the state shall endeavor to promote international peace and security, maintain just and honorable relations between nations, foster respect for international laws and treaty obligations, encourage settlements of international disputes by mutual agreement, etc. Apart from this, there are certain other principles which can be categorized as miscellaneous principles. The directive principles in this category call upon the state to secure for all the Indians a uniform civil code, to protect historical monuments, to save environment from pollution and to protect wildlife, to make arrangements for disbursement of free legal justice through suitable legislation, etc. Directive principles of state policy can also be clubbed together quite differently considering the nature of these principles. Acharya Dr. Durga Das Basu attempted to classify these principles under following heads. Directives in the nature of ideals of the state. 1. The state shall strive to promote the welfare of people by securing a social order permeated by social, economic, and political justice to minimize inequality in income, status, facilities, and opportunities among individuals and groups. Article 38. 2. The state shall endeavor to secure just and human conditions of work, a living wage, a decent standard of living, and social and cultural opportunities for all the workers. Article 43. 3. The state shall endeavor to raise the level of nutrition and standard of living and to improve public health. Article 47. The state shall direct its policy towards securing equitable distribution of the material resources of the community and prevention of concentration of wealth and means of production. Article 39b and c. The state shall endeavor to promote international peace and security. Article 51. There are some directives which are designed to shape the policy of the state. They are as follows. To secure a uniform civil code for the citizens, Article 44. To provide free and compulsory primary education, Article 45. To prohibit consumption of liquor and intoxicating drugs except for medical purposes, Article 47. To develop cottage industries, Article 43. To organize agriculture and animal husbandry on modern lines, Article 48. To organize village panchayats as units of self-government, Article 40. To promote economic and educational interest of weaker sections and to protect them from social injustice, Article 46. To protect and improve the environment and to safeguard forests and wildlife, Article 48, subsection A. To protect and maintain places of historic or artistic interest, Article 49. To separate the judiciary from the executive, Article 50. Some of the directives may be identified as important non-justiciable rights of the individuals. Right to adequate means of livelihood, Article 39A. Right of both sexes to equal pay for equal work, Article 39D. Right against economic exploitation, Article 39E and F. Right of children and the young to be protected against exploitation and to opportunities for healthy development consonant with freedom and dignity, Article 39F. Right to equal opportunity for justice and free legal aid, Article 39, subsection A. Right to work, Article 41. Right to public assistance in case of unemployment, old age, sickness, disablement, etc., Article 41. Right to human conditions of work and maternity relief, 42. Right to a living wage and conditions of work ensuring decent standard of life for workers, Article 43. Right of workers to participate in management of industries, 43, subsection A. Right of children to free and compulsory education, 45. These principles fall in the last category. Thus, Part 4 of the Indian Constitution contain certain social and economic ideals which, according to the framers of the Constitution, the state should strive for. Often, questions have been raised regarding practical utility of these principles, especially because these part is not enforceable in the court of law like Part 3 of the Constitution, that is the part containing fundamental rights. Nevertheless, many of these directives have found legal sanctions, and most important of these are those which are related to local self-government and right to education. Let us now focus on some examples regarding implementation of these directive principles. For example, let's start with the area dealing with education. As we know that percentage of literate people at the time of independence was only 14%. Indian government laid stress on spread of literacy among the mass. Efforts were taken by the government towards literacy of the people of India. Spread of elementary education and its universalization and reducing the rate of dropouts at the primary stage were the prime concern of the governments. According to National Policy of Education 1986, the government had launched National Literacy Mission and Operation Blackboard for the spread of mass literacy at the primary stage. Finally, the directive principles providing free and compulsory education of children up to the age of 14 years has been given the status of a law through 86th Amendment Act of the Constitution, which was actually being enacted in 2002. An act has also been made towards this effect. Though much has been achieved, we know that still there is a long way to go to accomplish this objective of a welfare state, which was initially only a part of the directive principles of state policy. Employment of children below the age of 14 years in mines and industries which are hazardous to their health is already prohibited by Article 23 and 24, that is the fundamental right against exploitation. In spite of these provisions, the desired result have not yet been achieved. In most of the cases, parents' attitude is not conducive to the elimination of child labor. Dr. Abdul Kalam's dream of developed India 2020 can be achieved only when the children with all their childhood rights, right to education are secured and they are protected from exploitation. And herein lies the importance of directive principles to make this legally effective. Status of women. Necessity of raising the status and level of education of women has already been stressed in our Constitution through fundamental rights and various directive principles of state policy. Provision is there in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution for securing the right to an adequate means of livelihood and equal pay with that of men for work rendered by women. Women workers, as per different laws and statutes, have also been provided with enough health care and maternity relief, which also have basic foundation in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution. Directive principles of state policy has been found most effective in the area of implementation of local self-government. Directive inserted through Article 40 talked about organization of village panchayats. This directive found legal expression through 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. Part 9 and Part 9A were inserted in the Constitution. Part 9 deals with panchayats containing Article 243 to 243O, and Part 9A relates with municipalities containing articles from 243P to 243ZG. Through these acts, the units of local self-government have been made more representative. These directive principles have been made effective by the government through various provisions. Some of these can be listed as below: introduction of legal measures for land reforms, abolition of Jagirdari and Zamindari systems, rapid industrialization and increase of agricultural production through green revolution, establishment of the National Commission of Welfare of Women, abolition of privy purses for ex-princes, deletion of right to property from the chapter of fundamental rights, abolition of untouchability, providing legal support for upliftment of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and other backward classes, encouraging small scale and village industries and khadi gramodyog to bring prosperity in the rural areas, etc. India has also been actively cooperating with UNO to promote international peace and security, which has already been enumerated in the Part 4 of the Constitution, that is a part of Directive Principles of State Policy. The above steps on the part of the central and state governments indicate that many of the directive principles have been implemented to lay down the foundation of a secular and welfare state. However, there is a long way to go and contradictory provisions need to be revised. Let us now focus on Part 4A of the Constitution, which contains certain fundamental duties to be obeyed by the citizens of India. The fundamental duties are an inalienable part of the Indian Constitution. The duties prescribed embody some of the highest ideals pioneered by the philosophers, social reformers, and political leaders of India. Fundamental duties are interwoven with fundamental rights. That is, no duty, no right. That is, no right can be meaningful unless we perform certain duties on our part. Fundamental duties help strengthening the process of nation building. No democratic polity can ever succeed where the citizens are not willing to be active participants in the process of governance by assuming responsibilities and discharging citizenship duties and coming forward to give their best to the nation. The most important task before the Indians is to reconcile the claims of the individual citizen with those of the civic society. Therefore, it is important to orient the individual citizen to be conscious of their social and citizenship responsibilities and duties so that nation building in India can be a very healthy process. Therefore, awareness of our citizenship duties is as important as awareness about our rights. Every right implies a corresponding duty, but every duty does not imply a corresponding right. Man does not live for himself alone. He lives for common good and he lives for the nation. So, the part containing fundamental duties is as important as the part containing fundamental rights. Fundamental duties, however, are defined as the moral obligations. This part containing fundamental duties was never a part of the original constitution. It was being incorporated in the Indian Constitution by 42nd Amendment Act. And then it contained 10 points, and the 11th point was inserted by 86th Constitutional Amendment Act 2002. These duties set in Part 4A of the Constitution concern the individual as well as the nation, though they are legally not enforceable. They are held by the Supreme Court to be obligatory for the citizens. In 1976, Sardar Sharan Singh Committee recommended for the incorporation of fundamental duties, and to give effect to that recommendation, it came into effect from 3rd January 1977. Let us now focus on these fundamental duties. To abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, the national flag and national anthem, to cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspire our national struggle for freedom, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, to defend the country and render national service called upon when called upon to do so, to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, regional or sectional diversities, and to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women, to value and preserve rich heritage of our composite culture, to protect and improve natural environment including forests, lakes, rivers and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures, to develop scientific temper, humanism, spirit of inquiry and reform, to safeguard public property and to adjure violence, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. Every citizen who is a parent or a guardian to provide opportunities for education to his children, or as the case may be ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. These were the 11 fundamental duties to be performed by the citizens of India. Some of the fundamental duties are moral duties, while some other are civic duties. These are confined only to the citizens of India. Like the directive principles of state policy, I have already mentioned that fundamental duties are also non-justiciable. These fundamental duties are recognized as moral obligations that actually help in upholding the spirit of nationalism as well as to support harmony of the nation as well as of the citizens. These duties can be classified accordingly as related to environment, duties towards the state and nation, and also towards yourself. However, the main purpose of incorporating the fundamental duties is to encourage the sense of patriotism among the country's citizens. But as these duties are not enforceable in a court of law, questions have always been raised regarding the practical utility of Part 4A of the Constitution. However, Supreme Court has said that in Headmaster versus Union of India case 1983 that these fundamental duties are also very important part of the Indian Constitution, which are the part which is absolutely obligatory for the citizens of India. And it has also been stated that fundamental duties, though not enforceable by the mechanism of judicial review, but may be made effective through legislation or certain ordinances or directives of the government. Thus, attention should be given to Part 4 and Part 4A of the Constitution as it is to be given to Part 3 of the Constitution, though Part 4 and Part 4A are not enforceable directly, but they can be made effective through adequate legislation.